Hello, welcome to the Wool Wonder podcast. My name is Frances and it's lovely to see you back. If you watched my last episode, I have just returned after having about a break of 7 months, and thank you so much. So many of you sent me some lovely messages, and I really appreciated that. Really appreciated knowing that you really enjoyed having me back. That's so lovely to hear. So thank you so much. Thank you. So this episode, I've got lots more to share with you. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've knitted during that break and also look at what I've knitted since I spoke to you last 3 weeks ago. This is Hugo, if you haven't already met Hugo, and Hugo's got something strange going on with the hair on top of his head at the moment. I bathed him yesterday and yeah, he had a bit of a blow dry, so maybe it's something to do with the way that we did that, because we're definitely not doggy groomers. Anyway, so Tesselated Cardigan. I finished this probably, I'm trying to think, maybe May time earlier this year. So just as we were leaving the place that we'd been staying in Cornwall, I can remember sitting in the chair and knitting the pattern for this. It felt at times like it went on for a long time, in the sense that the pattern is a slip stitch pattern, and so it's quite slow to build. That said, once you get it into your head, it's quite enjoyable to do. So I knitted the cardigan in. Are you going to have a little sniff? Does it smell good? Right. I knitted the cardigan in a 4-ply from Debonair, who are based in Rutland County. You really are taking them. And I bought that at the Norfolk yarn show. I think that's the right word for it. Back earlier this year, and I had this lovely blue, and then I had so then I had this multicoloured one. So you've got this lovely blue, which is what you, or sort of tealy blue that we've got going on here, and then I've got this lovely mixed colour, changing colour that are in there, and then I've got this fluff, mohair fluff. It's actually mohair and silk. And this has come from the Fibre Fox, who were also at the same festival but on a different stall. You're being a real big help, do you know that? Never film with a puppy on your lap. So yeah, so they mix up very well, and I started off doing a tester swatch, and my first attempt at doing the tester swatch, there wasn't enough fullness to the fabric, and so I ended up using two, so holding this yarn double, so I ended up getting a second skein and holding this double. I didn't actually use an awful lot of yarn. I did use the crop version, but I'm not petite, and no, certainly not, so I didn't end up using a lot of yarn, so it was quite good value from that perspective. And in fact, I've loved this combination so much that I'm now doing a traveller coat, also by Andrea Mowry, and I'll tell you more about that on another episode, because I've done quite a few of that kind of thing recently, those cows, and I'm really enjoying the results of those. Right, I've lost my assistant, so back to the Tesselated Cardigan by Andrea Mowry that I'm wearing at the moment. I knitted the cropped version. It's a drop shoulder construction, as you can see here, but it's quite a close fixing drop shoulder. I would normally avoid drop shoulder just because I'm quite small in the shoulders and larger down on the hips, and so a drop shoulder never looks very flattering on me. But I feel because it's more fitted, if you like, around the sleeve, that works better. So it's knitted from the bottom up. So I cast on down on the bottom on a size 4, and you knit it all in one piece until you get to the sleeves, and then you split and you do one front and then the other front and then the back, or maybe it was one front and then the back and then the front. And it's important to make sure, because you've got this kind of checkered pattern, it's important to make sure you've got the same amount of pattern repeats on each bit so that it marries up. So it's quite important to keep a tab on that. And then the shoulders are interestingly done on the opposite way round to the way you would normally. So it's a 3-needle bind off, but they're done the opposite way around. So you're creating this little sleeve. Let me come up and show you the little sleeve. And in fact, while I'm standing up, I'll just give you a little, and you can see. So it's quite cropped. It sits on my waist. But that's what I wanted, so that I can wear dresses and so forth with it. And then once I'd completed the body, you're then picking up the stitches and going downwards to complete the sleeves, which allows me to easily get the right length sleeve for me. The 4-ply yarn that I used for this is a 60% superwash merino and 20% yak and 10% nylon, so it does make a really nice feeling yarn to wear. And the fluff from the Fibre Fox is 72% kid mohair but 28% silk, so it's quite a nice soft feeling mohair. And the resulting fabric, or resulting material of the cardigan, it feels really nice to wear. It's not at all uncomfortable on my skin, and which is generally what I'm trying to go for. I'm not awfully sure that I enjoy wearing things that don't feel really comfortable on my skin. So I've worn this quite a few times. I wore this when I went to the Glasgow School of Yarn show last month that I was talking about on my last video, and received quite a lot of nice compliments, so that's really lovely. And yeah, no, I've really enjoyed doing it. The patterns, as I say, once you get it into your head, it's relatively straightforward. It's not a straightforward knit as a stocking stitch, if you like, but it's not complicated, and I enjoyed doing that. So yeah, this is definitely something I'm really pleased with, and definitely something I'm going to be wearing a lot of. Really pleased with the colour combinations. Took me a little while to decide, spent quite some time at the Norfolk Yarn Festival going round trying to decide on my colours. I had something in my head, so I guess that probably helped. I'm not sure where that combination had popped up from, but it obviously had lodged itself in here somewhere, and I was really pleased with the result. It's what I kind of look for. I do like the look of the checkerboard. Andrea Mowry uses a Spinnaker's changing colour yarn that is popular and is available in America, and while you can buy it in the UK, it is obviously imported from America. That noise is Hugo just pulling something over. And so I was keen that I wanted to use UK yarns rather than getting in an import where I could. And I think it's worked. Although it's not exactly the same effect, I'm still really pleased with the effect that I managed to get from that. And I would do that again when I'm looking for a colour changing yarn, just go for something that's a little bit more, I guess it's much more random in the way that it changes colour, whereas the one that Andrea Mowry is a graduated colour changing thing, which is beautiful. But as I say, I was keen to use something that was available more locally. And the yarn, Debonair, is based in Rutland, which is the smallest county in England, and bizarrely enough is actually where one of my sons has recently moved to with his family, and it's a lovely place. We go up to visit, and there's a big reservoir there, and we've had lovely picnics there and that kind of thing. So it's a really nice part of the world actually, and he's very lucky to be living in there. So. Right, so I'm now going to do a quick click of my fingers. So this is my finished Huia cardigan, and this is knitted in a 4-ply yak from Blue Fern Yarns, and I talked about the finishing this on the previous video, but here it is now finished. And it's interesting to see what a difference blocking makes, especially where lace is concerned. So I'll put a photo up to show you of me holding it up last time, and you can hopefully see the difference that blocking makes. Yeah, it's come out really nicely. So let's stand up and I can show you the ribbing on it. And there are some mistakes on the ribbing. There's a couple. It's a twisted ribbon. It's a twisted ribbing, and there's a couple of points where I've forgotten to twist the rib for a couple of stitches, and I didn't realise until a lot further along in my knitting. I thought, oh, no, I cannot be bothered to be going back and redoing it, because when you're doing the twisted rib for the whole ribbing, that's a lot to take back. So but actually by the time I've blocked it, it's pretty forgiving. Actually, it's not that noticeable. You can see it if you look for it, but I don't think it's that noticeable. So I think that was the right decision to do. And as I say, the lace area here was just kind of hanging and sort of turned in on itself and what have you, and so the blocking has got that all looking really nice. As I would expect, I do enjoy using Blue Fern Yarns Yak. I've knitted a cardigan in it before and found it really, really lovely to wear. This is a short sleeve dress that I've got on here, and it's really nice to wear against your skin, and feels really nice even when it's a bit warmer. And this is really intended to be more of a cardigan that I'm going to wear in the warmer season, hence the shorter sleeves. So I'm really pleased with the way it feels just wearing it now, and I'm really delighted with it. And as I mentioned before last time on the previous video, I added in some extra short row shaping on the back, and I think that's helped. And I changed, this has a little button on the original pattern, and I changed that and just went for a simple continuation of the twisted rib on there. And then at the bottom it would have been not such a long rib, and I've chosen to go for quite a deep rib there, and make the cardigan more cropped, so the ribbing I think just sort of emphasises that, the croppedness of it, so that's quite nice. And it's quite interesting at the neck, and what I'll do, I will take it off in a minute and show you what it's like at the neck. It's quite interesting the way there's no the two fronts actually join up together, or meet together if you like, onto the back neck, and I was worried how that would sit, but I think it sits really well. The only thing that I think, if I was to say I'm not 100% sure on, is when I was doing the short row shaping for the sleeve. So in order to get the sleeve to look like a or to be a set-in sleeve, you're doing more rows up here, and then you're building up, adding in more stitches. So essentially there's more rows along here, less down here, to build up that top of the arm, the sleeve head, so that it sits in there. And so where you're doing that, where you're doing the short row shaping, like you can see there's a little line here, and I'm not awfully sure, I don't know, I feel it's a little bit more noticeable than I would have liked. I also wonder whether I could have brought the shoulders in a bit more. I don't know. So that's a few thoughts that I've had. Other than that, I think I would definitely knit the pattern again, but I'm wondering, you tell me what you think. Can you see from looking at that how noticeable it is? Have you tried any different techniques for using short row shaping? The reason is because literally every row you're just taking one more stitch in, and so often when we do short row shaping, we're doing it every maybe 5 stitches, 8 stitches, 10 stitches. This is every row we're taking one more stitch on, and so I think it's more noticeable. That said, it looks neat, it doesn't look untidy, it's just that I can see it. And I suppose I often knit pieced pieces, particularly when I'm doing Rowan items, they're often pieced pieces where you're sewing them together, and so then you've got that nice seam that you achieve with mattress stitch, and I think I'm looking for that. And this is just a bit different, so I've got to sew. So let me know what you think, and yeah, I'll probably wear this a bit before, if I decide to make another one, before I do decide to make another one. It's turning very cold today, so if you bear with me a moment, with a click of my fingers, I think I'm going to get back into my warmer Tesselated cardigan. So in the last episode I told you that I was knitting, or I bought the yarn to knit the Waterland sweater, which I had seen made up at the Glasgow School of Yarn, and I bought the yarn for it there from the Berlin Yarn Company, and it's a Hebridean and Cheviot wool, and bought it in some lovely colours, and I have cast on, and let me show you where I have got to so far. When I did the swatch, I needed to go up a needle size, which is unusual. I normally need to drop down, quite a loose knitter, normally need to drop down a needle size, and then of course, and that was for stocking stitch, so then when I got to the fair row I then needed to go up another needle size. So this is actually knitted on a 4.5, and even despite that, this part is still quite tight. So it's knitted from the top down. I have cast on with a tubular cast on, and it's a twisted rib. So another one with a twisted rib, and I'm really quite enjoying twisted ribs at the moment. So I've cast on with the twisted rib. There is some short row shaping in the back, and I added another 2 repeats of the short row shaping, another 2 rows of the short row shaping, just to give it a bit of additional length in the back. And I was going along great guns, and I did a stitch count and realised, so that was probably just before I was getting to the fair aisle, did a stitch count and realised that I did not have enough stitches, and that I had managed to miss out an increase round. So back I went to the end of the ribbing, started again, got it right this time, spot on with the stitch count, and off I went. And as I say, when I got to the fair aisle, I've then gone up to that size 4.5 needle for me. Other people that have knitted it in the Berlin yarn, looking at Ravelry, have also said that they've needed to go up, or certainly some of them have anyway. So that seems to be in line, obviously, with what's to be expected. So I'm knitting the fair aisle with 2 hands, which is the way I normally do that. So one hand in the right, one hand in the left, knitting continentally with the left hand. And it's interesting, this fair. Now let me hold it up a little bit closer to you, and you can maybe see that there are some purl stitches in parts. So it adds a real interesting texture into the sweater. So it's a more unusual fair aisle pattern. It's got, as I say, it's got a bit of texture. It does make it quite interesting. So I've got down so far here. I think I've got maybe not quite another third to go. And I've noticed there's some short row shaping when you come down to just above the rib at the bottom, presumably to give it more shape in the back, but I haven't actually looked at it in any great detail yet. So that would be interesting. I don't think I've ever done that on a garment before, so it would be interesting to see how that works and the effect of that. I'm also a little bit concerned because I seem to be running a bit low on yarn, and I'm not quite sure why that was. So yeah, not really looking forward to a game of yarn chicken. And whilst doing the fair aisle, I did actually run into a bit of a problem, made a few mistakes, and that was because you can see I've got the white and then I've got that sort of teal colour. They were my two, my B and my C. But on the chart, the B colour is a dark colour. It's shaded dark on the chart, so it's black and white and it's shaded dark. And the C colour, which is my teal, is shaded light. And of course you can imagine my brain is transferring those the other way, so I'm thinking, well, obviously the light colour is the white, so that must be the C, which it wasn't. So I really need to watch myself with that kind of thing, or maybe even just take a pen and recolour the chart. Yeah, because taking it back is there's a lot to take back. So I didn't have to go. We're only talking about a row and a half then. It wasn't anything serious, which obviously, because by then when you're on the yoke, there's an awful lot of stitches. And let's be honest, these things do happen. I'm just looking at this here now, and I can see a stitch that's not quite right on here. But yeah, you're probably not going to notice, and so I'm gonna forget about it, I think, essentially. Really pleased with how that's coming on. It's quite a robust feeling yarn, but I did notice that when I swatched for it, I think my swatches are up on the board behind me now, when I swatched for it, and then I soaked and blocked it, that it came up a lot softer. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case for that. And I think I possibly might have mentioned that last time when I was talking about this jumper. So that's that jumper. And then the other jumper that I was talking about was the Judith, well, no, it's a cardigan. The other cardigan I was talking about is a Judith cardigan by Jackie Blogg. And we had all these lovely colours. Some of them are not in there now. They're now in this bag. We had all these lovely colours going on, and I have cast on and got started with that. So this is a bottom-up construction, but it's knitted in the round with a steek down the front that I'm going to reinforce and then cut up and turn the sides over. It's been a while since I've done one of those, so that will be interesting. I will, and actually there is something to be said, especially when you're doing Fair Isle, for not doing the pearl rows. I did find when I was doing the Tesselated cardigan, beautiful cardigan, but there were pearl rows for the Fair Isle, and it was a much more complicated Fair Isle than this is. I found a good method of doing it using the Portuguese method for my right hand, where the yarn goes round your neck to tension it, and that worked really well. But it is more simple if you are just knitting and not purling, and then holding the two yarns in both hands. So let me show you how far I've got. It's not that far, but it is interesting. So here we go. You can see, yeah, and this is kind of how it goes. You keep changing into all these lovely different colours, and you've got different patterns going on. I quite like, I'm not so sure about purple, never a fan of purple. However, I know when there's lots of different colours in something, it's often worth just going with it, because the overall effect works, if you kind of know what I mean. So yeah, so now I'm on to quite a nice sort of limey yellow, which I rather like, with a lovely sort of Frenchy slatey grey sort of blue. So that's lovely. So I'm quite enjoying that. It's always that old adage, isn't it? I think I showed you all the colours on the colour card, didn't I, last time? So you can see there's all sorts of different, lovely array of different colours. Because you're doing it in those blocks of stripes, of course, it makes it really interesting, and you're moving along and changing it, and then each pattern is a little bit different in that set. I think it's about 6 rows of each colour you're doing, so so that's really interesting too. So that's a lot of fun. And then finally I've got a new cast on, which I didn't talk to you about before. It was a seed in my head, which I need to blame Ailey for, the thoughtful knitter who who arranged our trip up to Scotland. So thanks, Ailey, because watching one of her videos, and she was making, what's it called, the My Dear Sweater, oh my dear sweater, my dear sweater, and it's a Christmas jumper. And I thought, I don't have a Christmas jumper, and why buy a Christmas jumper when you can knit? So, and this So there was, I've seen a couple of nice ones for Rowan, but they've never quite been the right shape that I wanted to wear, even though the designs were really rather lovely. They weren't shapes that were particularly flattering for me. And this is a top-down sweater, and I'll put a photo of the finished pattern, what it would look like, and then I can show you what I have done. So it's really rather lovely. I bought this yarn from Ripple's Crafts at the Glasgow School of Yarn Festival. It's called Arcadia DK Autumn Hawthorn Berries, and it's 100% merino wool, double knit. So, and yeah, they're based up in the Scottish Islands, which is, I'm now beginning to realise, not that far north. I've got family up in the Scottish Highlands from my mum's side, and I always used to think of that when I was younger as being a long way north. But talking to Ailey, you realise that actually, and even Ailey will be the first to say, well, actually, it's more Scotland above when you get up into the islands as well. So yeah, that's the Ripple's Crafts. And the white colour that I'm using now, that was, so I bought this, I saw this colour and I thought, I love that colour. It's a red, but it's kind of like a really deep, rich, dark red. And so I bought 7 skeins of this, I think, in a sweater's worth of yarn anyway. I've got figures written down in my phone as to how many skeins I need to make a crop cardigan, how many skeins I need to make a sweater, and so forth, so that when I see yarn at the shows that I like, I can buy it without having a pattern in mind. And then when I get an inspiration for a pattern, I'll often have a look and see what I've got there. And that's because I don't have I don't have any real yarn shops locally to me. So I quite often pop down to Stitches and Cream when I'm down in Falmouth visiting my daughter, or other places when the opportunity arises, but the opportunity doesn't arise very often. So whereas some of you are lucky and do have local yarn stores where you can go in and pick up yarn when you're ready for your next project, I tend to buy it at the yarn shows, and then it's there for when I want it. And if that otherwise, I might turn to a yarn that I'm familiar with and then just order it, you know, in the colour I want it in, or what have you. So, oh, and I forgot to show you this. Ailey gave us a lovely little bag, and in there was this lovely marker that I've got marking the beginning of my round. The little sheep on. So back to the different yarn the other yarn that I was using. So I had a look at some different DKs that I needed. I needed 175 meters, so effectively really one skein. But I had a Rowan Island blend, which was very creamy. I made a cowl with it either early this year or late last year, which was a pattern from the Cray Beer, and that was too rich. The cream was too rich in that. I wanted something that was slightly more indicative of snow, if you like, and so I've gone for this. So it's an off-white, and this is left over from my Tesselated Cardigan. So it is West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply, and it's 80% Falkland wool and 20% mulberry silk. So as you can imagine, it feels pretty lovely, and it's 4-ply, so I am doubling it up. So I took the skein and I made 2 balls of it, and so I'm knitting with 2 strands for that, and I think it's actually working really lovely, or really well, should I say. Yeah, it's just looking is just sitting really nicely. One of the things that's really interesting about this pattern actually is you've got these bobbles at the top. Like, hopefully you can see those along here. And then those bobbles are also going to reappear later in the pattern, and I'll tell you more about that next time, because I should think. So what I've got here, these are the tops of the trees you can see coming in here. And then you go down and you've got the reindeer, and the bobble goes onto the reindeer's nose. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, at the moment that's what I'm turning to and knitting. My thinking is I wasn't really, I saw Ailey talking about it, oh, I don't know, September maybe, I think it maybe would have been September. And I thought, oh yes, I would like a Christmas jumper. And then of course you're like, well, there's a deadline and you've got to knit it by Christmas. And then I've decided that actually, if I don't get it finished by Christmas this year, it's not the end of the world, and I'll just put it away and return to it as we're approaching Christmas next year, and I'll have it finished for that. But so far, I mean, I only cast that on 4 days ago, and so, you know, it's not going too badly so far. So we'll see, because obviously once I get past the Fair Isle, then it should fly. As long as I've got the patience to knit that much stocking stitch. But I generally enjoy the stocking stitch. This was a conversation we were having. We had a knit group just last Friday, and we had a Pilates teacher who's one of our knitters come along and talk to us about exercises. Well, first of all, it was about the position that you're sitting in and making sure that you've got your posture right, that you've got your hips sat correctly, so that you're not putting strain on your lower back and that sort of thing. And then she was showing us different exercises for your hands to help stretch out the muscles in your hands, and just different. And of course, what you find when you do these stretches is certain things are so you do it and you think, oh yeah, I can really feel that working. And for most of us, of course, you'll feel one side feels much tighter, one hand feels much tighter, or one arm much tighter than the other one. So that was really interesting. But where I was going with this was that we were saying that actually one of the things that's really nice to do and is really relaxing is just getting out some stocking stitch and just enjoying knitting without thinking. I know I've said this many times before, I enjoy doing a bit of a challenge, and so this deer sweater is a little bit of a challenge with the Fair Isle. Only a challenge in that I've got to just concentrate and make sure that I get my stitches correct, so that the pattern forms correctly. No more challenging than that, but when you're just knitting stocking stitch, which is what I'm now doing with the Waterlands sweater, and in fact, of course, I'm knitting in the round, so I'm just knitting round and round and round, and that is really enjoyable. That's just being able to switch off and knit. It might be because you're watching the telly, or you're sitting at a knit group, or chatting to people, or it might actually just be because you decided that you would like a bit of me time and you're just sitting there reading a book, listening to an audio book, watching a YouTube podcast. Yeah, I must. This was our conversation. You know, as it is something pretty special. So I'm doing that with the Waterland sweater, and I will be able to do this with the My Dear sweater when we get to that point. Unlike the Judith cardigan, where it's Fair Isle all the way through. But I think with that one, I think what's going to happen is that it's going to take me a bit longer because it is always Fair Isle. So, but I've got lots of different things going on at the same time, as well as my traveller cowl that I showed you that was knitted with the remaining yarn from the Tesselated Cardigan. That I've just taken my daughter today to Paddington Station in London, and so that's my travel knitting, and that was travelling around with me when we were on the minibus in Scotland, and so it's just straightforward knitting, just remembering the I cord at the end. So I've got that little handy project that's easy to pick up and knit when I'm out and about and travelling or what have you. The larger project like the Waterlands, which is plain stocking stitch, that I can do when I don't want to be too focused. And then I've got things like the My Dear and the Judith cardigan for when I'm looking for something a little bit more challenging, a little bit more needs a bit more thought given to it. So that's me waffling on. I'm just thinking when I'm looking at my project bags here, so this is the My Dear sweater. Really, especially as it grows, it needs to move into this bag, which is my Christmas bag, which I got from the Fibre Fox, if I remember rightly, when I bought my fluff for the Tesselated cardigan. But it's a Christmas themed bag. It's rather nice actually. It's a good size, and it just feels really nice to use. So I'm going to move my Dear sweater into here just because I feel it needs to be in a Christmas bag, so indulge me. So I need to do that. Right, so what have we got coming up? So we got away to Cornwall, I think the week before last, and then I had a couple of days in Suffolk, accompanying my dad, who was having a break over there, and I took Hugo with me, and we enjoyed some good walks on the beach, and hence why he needed a bath really this weekend, because a lot of seawater was in that fur. He's just lying down here sleeping now. And then what have we got coming up? We have this Saturday. Yes, this Saturday we're having an afternoon tea with a few knitting ladies. Then we are the following Saturday. I am helping a friend who's running a craft show locally in her village. So that'd be a lot of fun. I've not done anything like that for a while, so that would be interesting. And yeah, and then the week after that we've got our Christmas canal boat, and I'm not trying. I imagine I may probably film the next video just after that. I think we'll see. We'll see how I go, what I get done, what I've got to talk to you about. So but other than that, it's relatively quiet. Don't go back down to Cornwall now until mid-December, and that will be in time to pick up my daughter and bring her back for Christmas. And yeah, and then we're going to be moving into that busy mad Christmas season. So coming up, I've got some footage of us in Cornwall, a little bit of footage with Hugo, but he doesn't I think it's indicative of a Cavapoo, which is the breed that he is. He doesn't stray terribly far from us, so he'll only go maybe 20 feet or so out in front, and then he comes back, and a lot of the time you think, where is he? And he's literally right down there, right down by your feet, following close by. So he's not particularly easy to film, but anyway, you'll see we've got a little bit of footage of Hugo, and quite a bit of footage of Cornwall. It was we were lucky in that it was dry, but the sun didn't come out, so you know, got to be grateful for what it was, and it was mild, so that was lovely too. So show you some footage of that, and that then just leads me to say thank you so much for watching. As I said before, it's so lovely to be back, and it's so nice to hear how much you're enjoying it, and look forward to seeing you next time. So until then, take care. Bye bye.